Okay, so in this week's module, we are talking about how to dive into insecurities, understand what boundaries are, and boundaries are huge, and really create a game plan for you in the office of how to have effective communication and pull out some of these elephants in the room. So one of the takeaways for this week is being able to act with enthusiasm and what your attitudes are and what you bring to the table every single day. And you can be as tired as possible. You can have the longest day ever. You can have so many things going on in your personal lives. But really, it's that emotional awareness and what you bring to each patient. Because guess what? It's that ripple effect. And if you don't have the right attitude, well, everything else suffers as a result. And now, as you've learned in modules 1, 2, and 3, it's really what you're setting yourself up to be doing. And what you're setting yourself up to be doing is you've got your emotional toolkit, you know exactly what makes you come alive, and now you have the courage to forgive and move on. But what about having the enthusiasm to now create better choices? And understand that each of us, each of you in your team has boundaries. Your doctor has boundaries. Your patients have boundaries. And the second takeaway is identifying some of the elephants that are in the room. Some of the things that you don't really want to talk about, but they need to be brought up. Okay, many of you who are watching this, you're thinking, but I don't like confrontation. And no, it's not confrontation. If you're collectively as a team working on things to make them better for the bigger vision. What's the bigger vision? Well, you want to make your office shine. You want to make it thrive. So what are you willing to do? Well, some of these things that you don't want to talk about must get brought out to the forefront, must get brought out into the office, must get brought out in conversation with your 4x4 meetings. And if you don't have a 4x4 meeting in your practice right now, I strongly encourage you to talk to your doctors, and maybe they can watch this segment of the video of how to incorporate 4x4s, which are just 4 hours blocked off monthly meetings where you are going back and forth, you're role playing, you are identifying these elephants in the office, you are creating game plans to make things better. And guess what? You're also repeating some of the same things, because as we build muscle, as we build a six-pack, our emotional six-pack, we need to practice. And a lot of these things that you learn when you go to those conferences and when you read a book, you get so jazzed up. But then guess what? After a time, you forget. And if it's not part of your daily routine and daily practice, like that morning routine we talked about in module number 2, then we lose it. And that's how we don't have sustainable change that we want to implement in the office. That's why every time you go to one of those big conferences, it's great and it lasts for a while. But if we're not staying consistent in implementation, then you can forget about it. So 4x4 monthly meeting and huddles every morning, if you don't already do that, are so huge because you're planning the rest of your day. Like you're also doing your morning routine. You're setting yourself up for success. You're setting yourself up so that everyone is on the same page. Because if you fail to plan, or if you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you then plan to fail, right? So, and that's one of the key nuggets that I can leave for you today. Now, number 3, why are boundaries needed and how you can actually cultivate boundaries in your own life and really talk about these boundaries with your team. And really then identify what key boundaries that patients have, right? And how you can use some of this to then influence their decision making, because guess what, guys? You are the ones in the driver's seat. You are the ones that have the most control in the operatories with those patients. So you can give a heads up to your doctors, and you can give a heads up to your team on how they are going to react just by being a little bit more present. And if you present the information with much enthusiasm, well, guess what? You're winning for your doctor, and collectively you guys are winning together. So let me give you an example of some boundaries. Now, boundaries for you may mean, well, what are things that I will tolerate? What are things that I won't tolerate? And an example of a specific boundary in your office right now is, well, when that patient has canceled not 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and there's been no repercussions, and there's no cancellation fee, and they're learning that this is a learned behavior, that they are not going to get reprimanded for it, and they can still encroach on your time. Or that patient that comes late. Every single time they come in, it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Or maybe you have a team member that's consistently late. Or what about cell phones in the office? And I know that bringing this up, I know a lot of my doctors is, how can we get rid of the cell phones? And I know everyone is guilty of this. And I'm sorry I'm bringing this up, but it's huge, because is this what you want to set forth in your practice with the patients coming in? They have lives too, but we're putting our best foot forward when we're treating them, right? So making sure that you, with your cell phones, that there's a designated place to put them away when you're actually treating your patients, when you're actually in the office. What does that look like, right? And are we violating boundaries if we are not keeping focus on sticking with our commitments and sticking with these boundaries? Another way, an example of encroaching or stepping over somebody's boundaries is if you are consistently knocking on your doctor's door when they are just in between patients. And if your doctor doesn't have boundaries, you might want to ask what kind of boundaries they have, because maybe they're not telling you. And this is a great example of something that you can share at a monthly meeting or a weekly meeting. Lastly, boundaries are really what make your team much closer. And what I mean by this is when you're understanding and respecting the boundaries that even patients have, okay, it's huge, because that brings a sense of connection, and that brings a sense of respect, and that brings a sense of how you can cultivate a more cohesive team, meaning that you guys should be like glue. And when you're operating from the key characteristic of enthusiasm, where you're excited to learn about the different boundaries, then you're more likely to abide by those boundaries that people have. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about are habits. And what are some new habits that you can create today that are perhaps maybe new boundaries that you're thinking about, okay? And now you have exercises that are going to help in habit creation, and there's going to be a few more things below this video that you can think about. But I want you to really think of what new habits, okay, from these boundaries that we've been talking about, that you can incorporate in your own lives. That may make you a better mother, that may make you a better human as a result, maybe make you a better partner as a result. And lastly, how can we pull out these elephants that are sometimes so big in the room that we don't want to talk about? Maybe it's one team member that you're afraid of outing, but they're not pulling their side of the weight. Or maybe it's one doctor that is consistently running over, that you want to be able to share because you know that at the end of the day it's going to benefit the entire office. So how can you all collectively talk together and figure out ways for better communication in the office? I challenge that with you, and I challenge you to take this time to really think of, there's some key building blocks here that's going to take this and your practice and what you're building and this training into a whole new level. And I think you're ready for that. You so deserve that. So practice this, and if you have to replay this over again or in the mornings, go for it. Because again, practice makes perfect, but also practice and repetition makes you grow even greater.